The first Purge is the latest Purge movie. It's the fourth one in the series, first one continuity-wise, and it takes place when? You guessed it, during the first Purge. Kind of. It takes place during the first test purge on Staten Island, and it's being conducted by the new founding fathers of America, who are doing this purge for their own political and research reasons. And just like all the other previous Purge movies, we follow a group of people who are just trying to survive the night, trying not to get killed by any crazy people. But this time, it's a little bit different. Unlike the last three movies, when everyone knew what the purge was and what to be afraid of, this time, no one knows what the purge is, so no one really knows what they have to be afraid of. And I really like that, and it's probably the best thing that this movie has to offer. With the previous three Purge films, I think the first one was wasted potential. I thought the second and third one built onto each other, and I thought that the third one had a fine ending for that mixed trilogy. And so the first Purge having this new perspective on how people viewed the Purge in this refreshing way, I thought was probably the best thing for this franchise in order for them to move forward. So no one really knew what they had to be afraid of, unlike what we do, so it gave us a nice point of view for these characters, and I really like that. And this is probably the best part about the movie, and also part of the worst part, because since no one really knows what there is about the Purge, during the Purge for the middle 30 minutes of the movie, nothing really happens, and it really drags down this movie, because in the first 30 minutes we're introduced to all of these characters. I like the main character. She helps a lot of people during the Purge and tries to help her brother, and I also like Marissa Tomei's character, but all the other characters in this movie are paper thin, and I did not care about them at all. So when we have 30 minutes of this movie where we are first introduced to the first Purge and no one really knows how to react to it, no one really does that much, so we have 30 minutes of being introduced to bland characters, 30 minutes of really not that much happening, and then I will admit we do have an entertaining 30 last minutes of the movie, but it just wasn't that interesting for the first hour of this movie. Really not that much happens, and we're watching these characters that really we don't care about, and I think that goes to a lot of fault with the script of this movie, and that the characters in this movie are just not that good. As I said, they're paper thin, they're cliche, we've seen them all before, and a lot of them, surprisingly, are acted very poorly. There's some bad acting in this movie, and sometimes it's quite hilarious. There's this one character, Skeletor. He's probably the biggest annoyance I have with this entire movie. I really hated his character, because I don't know if it's the director's fault or the actor's fault, but I just don't know what this character was. Is he like a crack addict? Is he just crazy? Because in the beginning of the movie, the character Skeletor has a conflict with the main character's brother, and so in the beginning of the actual Purge, this brother goes on a trail to try to get Skeletor, and you think that's where the movie's heading, but then there's a certain moment where Skeletor just leaves the entire movie, and then we kind of forget about him. I actually forgot about Skeletor until near the end of the movie, and I'm like, oh wait, isn't that Skeletor character still in this? What happened to him? And then for some reason the script just throws Skeletor back in the movie for, I don't know, 30 seconds, mishandling him so much. It was kind of irritating, because we built up this, granted, a poor character, but we still built him up for this conflict, and then we just dispose of him like this, and I thought it was a poor way that they handled the character. Because even technically in this movie, there's so much wrong with it. It just feels so cheap. There's cheap green screen effects, the sound effects are poor. There's one scene that I actually did like, with two events occurring at the same time, and I thought they built the tension very well in that scene, but for some reason, at like the tip emotional peak of that scene, the film fades to black for like a second and then cuts back into the action. It cut all of the emotion I had about that scene, and I was so annoyed by it, because I'm like, why did you have to ruin one of the actual good scenes in your movie? And then sitting through the first Purge, I was just thinking, why are these films deemed as horror films? Because really, they're not scary. They are not horror films. I feel like the only reason why they're still horror films are that there are jump scares and there are people wearing masks, because really, these movies are just action thrillers, and I would be okay with that, because the last 30 minutes of this movie take place in an apartment, and it's just a straight up shooter action film, and I actually liked it. I thought it was entertaining, let me say that. And during the climax, I actually did like that the director used flashing lights throughout the scene. It gave it something new instead of just a generic hallway apartment action scene. And so I liked that it was something new that the film offered. But I feel like this movie just didn't know how to handle its characters. Most of the characters are so poorly written, and with Skeletor, I thought it was such a waste of a character. And even one of the characters who I did actually like, there is a time where the character has to be disposed of, and so the character is brought out of the movie. And 5 minutes later in the movie, we see on a surveillance screen the character being killed, and at first I was so confused. I'm like, who is this character? And then by the time it was over, I realized, oh, that was that character. why did they happen like that? It felt so lazy. It felt like they just couldn't get that actor for one day for shooting this one scene. It would have been much more emotional since it's one of the characters I personally actually liked in the movie, instead of just seeing it from a third-person perspective on a security camera. But even one of the more chilling horror aspects of the movie that I did like is that everyone who is partaking in the purge, they have to wear these contact lenses so that people can record what they are seeing, and the contact lenses are colored, so in scenes where it's just pitch black or someone's in a dark room, you see two colored lights behind them, hinting that someone's behind them. And I actually thought that was kind of cool. I did feel like they didn't take it as extreme as they could have with that idea, but just with a basic idea, I thought it was something new that none of the Purge films have done previously. But yeah, the first Purge, it does have some cool ideas with how people are reacting to a first Purge, and with some social commentary of how far people will go to get something as simple as money. But this movie is just so lazy, and I think it really goes back to its script. It doesn't know how to handle its characters. It's so poorly written and generic. A lot of the visuals and sound effects are so bad and lazy. I will say I did enjoy the last 30 minutes of this movie. I feel like you wouldn't really enjoy the first Purge unless you're already a fan of the series, so I can say that the first Purge is just meh. So that's the first Purge. What do you guys think? Have you seen the movie? Have you not seen the movie? Whatever you think, you can put the comments below and maybe I'll read it, maybe I won't. Thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't, you can click my last video right over here, and you can click my upcoming video right over here. Thank you as always for watching, and hope to see you next time.